Welcome back to Defenders TV Podcast, the Damnation crossover event, part 14. This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 153, our spoiler-filled discussion of Damnation number 4.
Hey guys, it's Rod Reyes here, artist of Marvel's Damnation comic book event. Welcome to the podcast crossover between Inner Demons, Sons of the Dragon, Defenders TV Podcast, and Into the Night. Every issue reviewed, all tie-in books discussed. May all be damned.
Hi, this is Connor.
Rebecca.
And Carl.
From Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist podcast, and you're listening to the Defenders TV podcast coverage of Damnation. Dun 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 dun.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, Loonies, Iron Fist fans, and Ghost Rider fans, to our penultimate episode of the Damnation crossover event that we've been doing for the last 15 issues of the Damnation crossover. I'm Derek, one of your hosts of Defenders TV Podcast, and we're on episode 153 of our podcast, talking about Damnation number 4.
And as always, I am one of your hoary hosts of Hogarth, John, as well. Yes, we have to be careful what we pick to represent the collective of Iron Fist fans.
Yes.
Yes, way too much innuendo there. But we all like innuendo here on Defenders TV Podcast.
Absolutely, as George Clinton said, innuendos, etuectos.
Yes.
Right, yes. Yeah, so welcome back. We are here with our penultimate episode, as I said, of the Damnation crossover event. We've been going for a couple of months now with a 15-part crossover event. We're in the final week now. Damnation number 4 and Doctor Strange number 389 both came out this week, and we're covering both of them. And what's fun is, this is the first time we're covering a book that has been drawn by Rod Reyes, who gave us our wonderful intro.
Yes, a big thanks to Rod Reyes for the fantastic intro, and of course matched by his fantastic artwork. I really love this artwork. Yes, so many good splash pages, and of course great artwork throughout this issue of Damnation, issue number 4.
Yeah, it was really good. There's some really fantastic moments where he just lets loose and gets tons of characters in there. You'll find out as we go through the episode, I did have to reach out to our other podcasts that help us out for these, just to get some of the names and some of the characters that Rod Reyes has splashed on some of these pages. There's some fantastic moments in there. If you haven't been following the series, just so you know, we're covering all of the Doctor Strange issues that are involved in it. And obviously this issue, Damnation number 4. The other podcasts that are involved in our collective group that are doing this coverage are Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist podcast, who've been covering the Iron Fist tie-ins. That was a really, really good run of Iron Fist tie-ins. They also did Damnation number 1. Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast, joined the crossover event with their review of Damnation number 2, and they covered all the Scarlet Spider tie-ins. And Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast, reviewed Damnation number 3, and they did the really important Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider number 1, which came out earlier on this week. That issue was probably one of the most important tie-ins other than the Doctor Strange issues, I'd say.
Yeah, that was really important. I think all Demonites would be very proud of that issue. Really good. And of course, dare we say it, he pops up again here in a very nice little twist that Wong has set for us all.
Mm-hmm. Yes, hopefully you've read Damnation number 4. If you haven't, time to stop. Go to your local comic book shop, pick up a copy of it and read it, and then come back for this spoiler-filled discussion. I think they're probably called Flameheads, actually, the Ghost Rider fans, aren't they?
Probably, yeah.
Flameheads.
What you could call them, Demonites or
Hellheads, maybe.
Hellheads, Skellheads.
Maybe. You tell us, Inner Demons. You tell us what the fans of Ghost Rider are called.
They also like chains as well, and whips. So, yeah, moving into more innuendo territory here. Mind you, Strange.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Strange Tales. Yes, that is for late night TV viewing indeed.
Okay, all right, let's get into it, John. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, just make sure you go over to our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. You'll see all of the links on there to subscribe to our podcast on any heavenly or damned podcast catcher. And you'll also find a page over there, Doctor Strange Damnation page, the comic crossover event, which catalogues all of the other issues that were covered by the Sons of the Dragon, by the Moon Knight podcast, and also by Inner Demons as well. So pop on over there if you want to get all of the issues that have been covered.
Absolutely. Head on over to Defenders TV Podcast for all your Defenders and as well Damnation coverage. And of course, yes, subscribe, rate us, leave a review. Remember to share the love and share the podcast. Derek, I think on to our spoiler-filled review of issue 4 of Damnation. Mm-hmm. What are some of the comic details here? Who wrote it? Who scribed it? Who drew it?
Well, the writers on this issue were Donny Cates and Nick Spencer. Nick Spencer, we haven't talked about before because we've been just covering the Donny Cates issues of Doctor Strange. Nick Spencer did the, I'd say, divisive Secret Empire. I must admit, I read every single issue of that crossover event. Secret Empire was where we had Hydra Cap. Not to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't read that book, but I absolutely loved that book. I really enjoyed it. Devoured every issue of the main series and most of the crossovers and tie-ins for that event. I thought it was really, really enjoyable. And that's where this whole concept of Doctor Strange Damnation came out of, because that's where we lost Las Vegas.
Yes, where Hydra came over and bombed the living daylights out of it.
Well, destroyed it, yes, absolutely. The artist for this issue, as we've mentioned already, is Rod Reyes, and he does a fantastic job in this book. There's lots of fantastic moments, I think, lots of great pages in here. And there is an epilogue, a kind of a post-credit part of this issue, which is done by Simon Kodransky and Dan Brown. Not sure if that's Dan Brown who did the Da Vinci Code. I'm not really sure about that, but I don't think so.
I would suspect not, because he's damned anyway for really going after the church in all its glory.
And the letterer for the issue was VC's Travis Lanham, and Rod Reyes did the cover that we have for the issue, the one that you'll most likely see with all of our Midnight Suns and Doctor Strange behind bars in the Hotel Inferno. Great cover. Really
lovely cover. Saw that getting released pretty early, and it was such a nice image seeing all those Midnight Sons and Daughters along with Doctor Strange as well, and Scarlet Spider. So is he classed as one of the Midnight Sons now? Possibly. We'll talk about it as we go into the issue, exactly.
I think. John, what we've been doing on the podcast so far is just using the base description that's at the beginning of each of the books as our lead into the episode, rather than doing our synopsis for an episode. Do you want to read what is in the introduction?
Yes, this will
episode?
be the shortest synopsis in the history of synopsi.
At least in 153 episodes of Defenders TV Podcast.
Yes. Or is it synopsises? We'll go with synopsi, it's easier to say. But yeah, absolutely. This is massively short and sweet, so we can get into our top 5 incantations.
So, John, do you want to give us the synopsis that we have in this issue for Doctor Strange Damnation number 4?
Sure. Mephisto claimed Las Vegas and the Avengers. Then he threw Johnny Blaze, last hope of Wong and his Midnight Suns, from the top of Hotel Inferno. Dun, dun, dun.
That's it.
That is it. That is the most synopsised thing I've ever done. And Fergus to Donny Cates and Nick Spencer for providing that lovely, short and sweet synopsis.
See, it takes 2 of them to write a synopsis that short, see? So
well,
really
that's it. Absolutely. Cutting it down is the hardest thing to do. I suspect they really just wanted to get into writing the issue.
I think so. Because I was laughing because I was reading all of the introductions to all of the characters that surround the synopsis that's there. And there's nothing really in the synopsis that actually is connected to the Damnation books at all. It's more about the history of the individual characters rather than connected to what happened to them in Damnation so far. So it's not even like they were expanding on it in another section. It's like, by this stage, you must have read the other 3 issues. So we're going to talk about it again in the issue itself. We're going to actually give you a bit of a previously on Damnation, which is a good lead-in for our incantation number 1.
Absolutely. But before we incant on number 1... I think it is definitely, this synopsis is beautifully framed by the Hotel Inferno rising steeply out of the ground in Las Vegas. Yes. So, yes, incantation number 1, previously on Damnation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been 13 issues since the beginning of the event. back in March. And really what's happened so far in the other books, up to Iron Fist number 80, really. We have the rise of Hotel Inferno. We have Mephisto claiming Lord and owner and protector and soul grabber of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We have Wong bringing together this collection of superheroes, all of them damned or have something. They're dead, they're vampires, they're monster things, all this kind of stuff. And of course, bringing them together to go in and rescue Doctor Strange, who lost his card game with the devil, has had his legs broken and is now trapped inside a void and a nebulous nexus thingy as well. So they've really got their work cut out here. We've also had Iron Fist fighting for his life along with Fat Cobra, his sister, and also Orson Randall fighting for their lives to get out of hell as well. Of course, Orson Randall, long may he rest in peace. Sadly, he did not make it. Too many ghouls, goblins, and beasts that beat him up, to be honest. Plus, he had gone another 12 rounds with a collection of ghouls, goblins, and other nasty things as well. So, lots going on there. But also then we have Johnny Blaze, who was sent in to distract Mephisto. But Mephisto really dispatched him pretty quickly by chucking him off the top of Hotel Inferno as he tries to kind of claim the throne of hell from Mephisto. But Mephisto was having none of it. And of course, we do have that great moment where Mephisto turns up in this episode on Johnny's bike as well.
Yes, the Hell Cycle.
Yes. Johnny had gone to claim the throne. Mephisto instead claimed his throne, his bike.
Yes, exactly.
His motorbike, in fact.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than his pedal bike, of course.
Of course. You don't have Ghost Rider on a pedal bike. That would be so weird. My notes for all...
Climate change.
Well, my notes for the whole series as it goes so far, I have... sadly, no real impact of Scarlet Spider. The 3-issue run of Scarlet Spider doesn't seem to have had an impact on this particular event, but I do think it's going to have an impact on Scarlet Spider himself because he's found a way through a bit of his darkness through these issues that he was involved in. I've got Johnny Blaze is now King of Hell because he took over in Mephisto's absence, which is quite cool. That's the moment where he walks in and sits on the throne of the former King of Hell, Mephisto, at the end of his issue. And of course, my favourite thing that's happened so far in the entire series of Damnation, which is Doctor Strange, as we have the wonderful bats taking control of Doctor Strange.
Absolutely.
For quite a bit of time. It's quite fun. If you've only been reading the Doctor Strange Damnation event part of it and not the Doctor Strange issues, please go and read the Doctor Strange issues. Just the moments with bats, as we talked about in our previous episodes, have been so much fun. But as we saw at the end of our last issue that we were covering, Doctor Strange's soul is trapped in hell and his body is in the control of bats at the beginning of this issue.
Yeah, well, it's a soul prison, in fairness. And he's certainly in there with a few of his big nemesi. Oh my goodness. I wish I'd done Latin, to be honest. I think that would have helped here.
It would.
I really not speak English very good. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think bats, for me, I've absolutely loved bats in this, and long may that team up continue, along with Wong as well. Some really good stuff here. We've also seen Clay coming back as well, being tempting Doctor Strange, probably and most likely a figment of his imagination conjured up by Mephisto. And this was the nice trick where Strange thinks he's fighting alongside the Avengers, alongside who he thinks are his rescuers, Scarlet Witch and Loki, as well as Clay. And in fact, it is but a mirage. It is a trick from Mephisto, because Doctor Strange is trapped and he is fighting the Midnight Suns, who are there to rescue him.
Yeah, and that does really lead us on perfectly to incantation number 2. Now that we're done with what happened previously on Damnation, incantation number 2 is Mephisto's pretty happy with himself at the beginning of this book. He seems like he has risen to the top and has become king of Las Vegas as he rides in on the Hell Cycle. It looks cool. I love this panel in the book from Rod Reyes. I think it's drawn so well. He looks different in most of the comics that we've seen so far. Each of the artists have kind of added their own little touch to Mephisto. And this one just looks like cool Mephisto riding in on the Hell Cycle. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Mephisto really thinks he's the bee's knees here. I mean, like, he is swaggering his way on that saddle to really just kind of to what he thinks is going to be his triumphant moment, crushing the Midnight Suns, as well as really sort of telling Wong, well, you tried, but unfortunately you failed
exactly.
Big time.
I love this idea of I am Mephisto, king of hell, and I am the bee's knees. I think he'd probably say I'm the dog's bollocks. What do you think, John?
Maybe, yeah. But I like to think he probably thinks he's the bee's knees.
I like it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he has a rude awakening awaiting him when he arrives on the motorcycle as the Ghost Rider Avengers turn on him immediately because Johnny Blaze has taken his post up in hell and has come back to claim his soul. I love this moment as we find out what the real plan of Wong was, that he was sending Johnny Blaze to hell to occupy the seat left by Mephisto in the Dark Dimension, or the Hell Dimension, I suppose, because he'd left it behind and hadn't really occupied a new space in Las Vegas. So for these last 3 issues, he's just been being distracted to allow Johnny Blaze to take up his seat in hell.
Yeah, it's really, really good here. I love it when Wong goes, I have a man on the inside. You know, we thought it was Scarlet Spider. Mm-hmm. We were thinking, is it Clay? Before we knew she was just an apparition, really. Yeah. A figment of Doctor Strange's imagination. Because, of course, it was actually Captain Marvel.
Yes.
So I really love when, you know, this has been running through all of the Doctor Strange tie-ins and through Damnation, this idea that there is someone on the inside. And, of course, who caused that man to be on the inside, but Mephisto himself, by ultimately taking out the Hell Demon from Johnny Blaze. And in the tie-in issue of Ghost Rider, you know, we see Johnny Blaze and the Spirit of Vengeance there walking together through hell to get to that throne. So that man on the inside, you know, Wong has played Mephisto here. He has used Mephisto's arrogance, the belief in himself that he, as Lord of Hell, will simply be able to swipe these flies aside. Mm-hmm. And of course, instead has placed his own Lord of Hell on that throne in the form of Johnny Blaze. And the Midnight Sons and Daughters ultimately have been this huge ruse throughout the series, and have been this distraction to Mephisto whilst he's been playing his games with Iron Fist in the ring, whilst he's been making the deal with the Scarlet Spider. All this time it has been distracting him from the real mission that Wong has had. And that was really, really cool. And I love the idea as well, just bringing in that time difference between Hell and Earth as well. That idea that minutes or hours on Earth are an eternity in Hell, in Damnation.
Absolutely.
You know, the main thrust of this comic series of Damnation, and what we find is that the damnation has come from Mephisto by trying to control the Midnight Suns on Earth in maybe an hour, half a day, whatever the time span of this series is, which I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think any night time has passed as such. It's all been occurring in a single moment, maybe over the course of a day and an evening and so on. Yeah. When in fact, the real work has been done by Johnny Blaze over a long period of time whilst he's been in hell, in Mephisto's palace of Hotel Inferno. Even in a sense, Doctor Strange has been a distraction for Mephisto, where he's really wanted to give the Sorcerer Supreme that comeuppance. So really excellent stuff here. I absolutely loved seeing Johnny Blaze as Lord of Hell. I really liked his fiery crown.
Oh, that was so cool.
And it was just so good. Him then, yes, coming to meet Mephisto with his other hell demons as well, to effectively crush Mephisto.
Well, we don't want to give all the credit to Johnny Blaze, though. This is Doctor Strange's storyline as well. So this moment where he gets possessed by all of the souls of the Avengers who are still trapped in hell so that he can take on Mephisto, I thought that's a great moment where he gets even more power and even stronger than Doctor Strange has ever been, because he's got these superhero powers inside of him for this moment where he finally puts paid to Mephisto. Oh, that was really good. I thought it was really nice to see. You know, you have the three main characters here really are Johnny Blaze, Wong, and Doctor Strange, so each of them are involved in this final resolution here, where we finally get to see the end of Mephisto, or him being sent back to hell.
Yeah, don't forget Bats.
Oh, of course not.
Bats is critical to the success of this plan, because otherwise Doctor Strange would be attacking the Midnight Suns, attacking Wong as well. But yeah, I love this Avengers Assemble inside Doctor Strange. Really, really good. Can you imagine if they did that for Infinity War? That would be really weird and really a new direction for the MCU, I think.
But it certainly would. But I did see a tweet from the writer of the Doctor Strange film to Donny Cates saying, "You're absolutely killing it on the Doctor Strange book at the moment. I'm really enjoying reading every issue." So maybe we will see an incarnation of Bats in the movie in the future.
That would be absolutely freaking awesome.
Bats the Basset Hound.
It really, really would be. But I love this by our powers combine. It was great seeing, the different logos from the different Avengers there. You see the Black Panther. So cool as he, uses all these different powers to battle Mephisto. And to be honest, I thought this entire battle sequence within the comic was really epic. You went from all the hell demons holding Mephisto down. You see all the use of these different powers, the growing strength of Doctor Strange, as Wong says as well, so that you don't feel alone. This idea that Doctor Strange has had a tough old year. He's feeling isolated. He's lost Zelma. He thought he had Clay there. This is a person, despite all the people around him actually really rooting for him, he just is so self-consumed that he thinks he's alone. It's like none of this gets through to him. And so Wong, Johnny Blaze, give him the other spirits and souls of the Avengers to wreak havoc, because obviously as well, Johnny Blaze has also allowed all the souls that were trapped by Mephisto to be free. I think they say about him going into that vault to release all those souls.
It's like, while I've been down there, that's what I did as well.
And I thought that artwork of the lightning as he's taking on the power of Thor was just so good, as he looks to take out Mephisto, and just the whole sort of anger and vengeance that is coming from Doctor Strange here. I just thought it was so good.
Yes, some of these panels are absolutely epic. I love that central panel right in the middle of the book where we have the Black Panther coming out on one side, and we have the representation of Xiao Lao on the other side of Doctor Strange as he's facing down Mephisto. We also see that he has the claws of the Black Panther. He has Captain Marvel's emblem on his chest. He has the bow and arrow of Hawkeye in there. So he's really taking on all the powers. It's just so well drawn by Rod Reyes. I love it, and love how painted it is. It's something that you'd absolutely want to see on your wall. I think it's just that moment where Doctor Strange isn't just an Avenger. He has become the Avengers, which is so cool.
Absolutely. It was really an epic fight scene here, and just done so well, drawn so well, just the panels connecting so well, and the writing as well. Really, really good. I must say, I just thought it was just some fantastic stuff as well here from Rod Reyes, and also from Donny Cates and Nick Spencer as well. Really so good.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. There's one more person really to thank for this big moment. We've mentioned him already, but our incantation number 3 kind of has to be dedicated to Wong, because he feels no fear, and it's a big moment for Wong.
Yeah.
It's this moment where he's kind of had been locking himself up and away from society at the start of these issues because of what happened to him with Stephen in the past. He kind of wanted to stay away from Stephen Strange because he always seemed to get into trouble. But he's taken up the reins here. He's brought the Midnight Suns to this situation. He's brought Johnny Blaze to this situation. and the Avengers effectively to try and make sure that Stephen is saved and that Stephen knows that he has friends. And there's the moment just before the battle when the world opens up to swallow Las Vegas again, and Wong starts to fall and is caught by Man-Thing. And he effectively is touched by Man-Thing and makes that point where he says, anyone who knows fear will burn at the touch of Man-Thing, but I'm not burning, so I have no fear, Stephen. I know exactly what I'm doing, which is a great moment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, props to Wong here. I mean, because, Mephisto is not going to take Wong's word for it. He says, let's go and have a look. He opens up this crater and Wong is falling in. Mm-hmm. And of course, just before that, he's told, and I must say I did really like that. It goes, Bats, you may leave Stephen now. And kind of Bats comes out of Stephen's head. So Stephen is the compos mentis. He sees Wong. He knows Wong's been here. And of course, the next thing he's seeing is Wong falling into the fires of hell, with Man-Thing going to rescue Wong. And of course, that is a double-edged sword. But instead, he holds on and, he is not burning up. And instead falls into the fiery pits of hell. And, we have that great moment where Stephen is shouting no as Wong falls down. He goes, I'm not afraid anymore. Mm-hmm. That idea that he's kind of been out of the way for a long time. He's been burnt by Stephen, and their relationship's been a little rocky, and he's kind of shut himself away. But when the moment came, he came after to find and rescue Stephen. And you see the Stephen Strange, his longtime friend and companion and partner, they team up and he's shouting, no, no, no. But instead he lands in Johnny Blaze's hell. And he manages to have those, remaining words with Johnny Blaze, where he tells him Stephen needs not to feel alone. Give him the souls of the Avengers, which leads into, obviously that massive epic battle. And I thought that was really, really good. I think as well, one of the other big things for Wong is that him and Stephen, after all of this, do get that moment together. And I have to say, I really loved Wong and Doctor Strange at the end, sitting down, talking it out, and really saying, the difference is that, I plan well effectively, that I give my plans a second and third thought.
Yes.
I don't just go rushing in. And I love the fact that they both crack up laughing together and hug it out as well. That's a really nice moment for these two characters. And it's so good to see that in the comic panels.
Absolutely. I just think it's a really funny moment where effectively he's asking Stephen, I know you would have done this. And Stephen goes, I would have done it without a second thought. And he goes, well, that's where we differ. I would have given a second thought.
Really good.
And that's why my plan worked and yours didn't, Stephen.
so right. Good.
That's good old Wong. He's always been there to help Stephen, not just as a friend, not just as a partner, not just as a butler as he used to be back in the old days. He's also a bit of a mentor to Stephen Strange as well. So I like that little touch.
He keeps Stephen grounded in the reality that he is human. He's doing all this interdimensional travel. He's going to different realms, different dimensions. He's going forwards, backwards in time, across space. And, he needs that person to keep him grounded. I think that's why sometimes, the human element does escape Stephen Strange's, because he is on a different plane. He has to operate that. He's dealing with gods, monsters, dark lords, the devil, and it provides a different context and a different perspective of how he has to view the protection of the Earth from the Sanctum Sanctorum. That interdimensional threat. It provides a completely different context as to how he operates compared to the Avengers. And I think it's really good having that moment with Wong, instrumental in the plan, along with Bats. I think he kept Bats in the loop there, and it was great to see these two sat down, hugging it out, having a chat, laughing with one another, and this really special relationship in the mystical world of Marvel.
Yeah, and I really enjoy how they used Wong throughout the series. It's been really, really good. Let's get on to Incantation 4, which is really the punishment of Mephisto. If you do have your big bad going on for 3 issues of the big series and 12 issues of the little series, you kind of have to make sure that he gets his comeuppance, don't you? You have to make sure that he gets what's coming to him. This moment, our Incantation number 4, is Mephisto's punishment and the end of Damnation. Kind of interesting here that we have this playing with time again for the villain of Mephisto. He's sent to a hell, pretty much having all of the Ghost Riders tear him apart and seek their vengeance on him for centuries, is what we hear.
Yes, and again we have that whole time difference where he is down there being absolutely tortured and really being given, what he's owed for what he's done to all the other demons. I mean, for example, I can't imagine for one moment that the demon that put Orson Randall and Iron Fist and Iron Fist's sister into that ring, when he's called away to go up to Mephisto because they have managed to defeat the demons, and the deal that both Iron Fist, his sister, and also Fat Cobra and his mother managed to get released. I suspect that demon's demon dust or something like that.
Yeah.
Really, he is no more. So he's getting what is owed in full, as maybe Mordo might say.
Exactly. And he does get his final punishment, which is that he has to stay for the rest of eternity in a penthouse suite, which is basically just a prison overlooking Las Vegas, effectively saying that poor Mephisto is going to be looking out over all of the souls he could possibly get if he was free.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's great how he is kind of spat out to Doctor Strange and the Avengers and the Midnight Sons and Daughters that are there at the end. Doctor Strange, he thinks he's lost Mephisto. He thinks he's failed Wong in his plan by letting him escape. And then Mephisto turns up there with the little notes to go easy on him. He's had a rough 100 years in the last few seconds, or don't. See you soon, Johnny. Just so good. And of course then, as you say, he's locked in the penthouse of the Hotel Inferno that has become the most popular casino on the Vegas Strip, with queues around the building to presumably go and see Mephisto as well as play his slot machines.
I'm not too sure whether I want to see an actual demon when I'm doing the slot machines in Vegas. I think that might encourage me to stop gambling if I had to go and visit the demon. I think it's probably because it's got a better light show than the Bellagio. It looks more realistic than the one with the Eiffel Tower on the top of it. It's like come see an actual piece of hell that's landed in Las Vegas. That's quite cool.
But Mephisto is tortured for centuries, and of course, he gets what's coming to him, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the issue ends out with that lovely moment with Bats and Doctor Strange sitting overlooking the city of Las Vegas, where he kind of echoes the original words that we saw back in the original issue of Doctor Strange that we were covering, where he starts it with, all in all, well, that went horribly. Couldn't actually have gone any worse, could it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good. And I love the fact that Bats calls time on all the hell puns that are being thrown around by Stephen Strange or any of the Midnight Sons. He's kind of like, remember, it's dark inside there when he was in Stephen's head. Mm-hmm. And he's glad to be out, and he's glad to be back with his friend Stephen Strange. Again, yeah, really nice to see those two hugging it out, so to speak, as much as a dog can hug Stephen Strange now that he's lost his opposable thumbs. It really is just a nice little moment. I think the other thing I really liked at the end here was just how kind of annoyed the Midnight Sons were when the Avengers start claiming credit for saving the day once again, where they just kind of go idiots. And you've got that great little panel of, Thor raising her hammer, all the other Avengers kind of taking the glory away from the Midnight Sons, because let's face it as well, they may have been a distraction, but they put their lives on the line, and it was a meaningful moment. It was that feint within the battle to distract, and all important for it.
Absolutely. It feels like they should have been able to claim some credit for this. They didn't know they were a distraction. They were fighting their hardest the whole time. They didn't die. They didn't succumb to the demons possessing their souls. They'd succumbed to them already, which is why they're part of the Midnight Suns.
Yeah, exactly.
But this time they didn't. But it does lead us on to our epilogue, John.
Yes.
Our incantation number 5 has to be the epilogue, doesn't it? Because
It really does.
quite important for all of us podcasters that have been covering these books, really, because the reason why we came on board is because probably more so for the members of the Midnight Suns than anything else. I'm kind of sad that they switched it up and said that the Midnight Suns really had no effect in here. What the epilogue tells us is they will have an effect in the future.
Most definitely. A great little moment where, we see the outside of the Sanctum Sanctorum at 177A Bleecker Street, looking a little tardy in fairness. It's still dealing with the end of magic from Jason Aaron's run. So, there's all it needs a good spring clean in there. It needs a bit of doing up, definitely. But we have Doctor Strange here, speaking with a group of people that ultimately are the Midnight Suns that have been helping Wong previously.
Yeah, so this is what we were going to say earlier on. There's only 4 members of the Midnight Suns that are left here. So all we have is Brother Voodoo, we have Blade, we have Moon Knight, and we have Elsa Bloodstone. We don't have Scarlet Spider in here. We don't have Iron Fist, for example. We don't have Man-Thing in here. They're not included in this group. This is just these 4 members of the Midnight Suns who are effectively being told they have a new mission.
Yes, and that is to rescue Johnny Blaze from hell. Whether he wants to be rescued, well, that's another question entirely.
Yeah.
But certainly Doctor Strange here is bringing together members of the Midnight Suns. Now, obviously, just a troop of 4 here.
Who are really protesting about the idea that they're going to be going on this mission.
Most
hell,
definitely. But I'm kind of liking the group of 4. You've got Moon Knight in there. That's really interesting. And I think, I'd love to see that interaction with Doctor Strange and Moon Knight in a new release comic. I think that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Same with Brother Voodoo. I've always loved Brother Voodoo. To see him there again, really, really good. Along with Blade and along with Elsa Bloodstone, who I don't know much about, so I'd really be interested. And we didn't really get to see much about her in the Damnation event at all, other than in a few panels. She was quite quiet, really, so it'd be really good to see her here. But definitely, not only are there just these 4, but there is the promise of adding new members.
Yes, there is. And we will talk about that in the notes. Just one point I wanted to make, which I really liked, was the interaction between Moon Knight, who is a fractured soul, we'll say. He has many different personalities that occasionally take over his soul. I like the fact that he's asking Doctor Strange, since you owe us your life, would you possibly think about having a look around in my head for me and try and sort this out? It kind of feels a little bit like the old Bruce Banner Hulk walking around all of America trying to find somebody that could solve his problems for him whatever way possible. So now we have Moon Knight trying to solve his slight mental issues by asking the Sorcerer Supreme to meddle a bit in his head for a while.
Yeah, that would be that'd be interesting to see now, for sure. I mean, again, I think it would just be an interesting team up. I love having and seeing these different groupings come together. And I mean, if you've got good writers and you see how they bounce off one another, different explorations of these characters, I think are just so cool. I mean, I'm all for origin stories and maintaining, that consistency within the character. But I think, when some of these characters are, 30, 40, 50 years old, you have to explore new areas. And I think these kind of team-ups, these types of events, even like Secret Empire, really help to just explore these characters in a different way. And I think that can only be a good thing for these characters to keep them fresh. As I say, I've always had that potential issue with Doctor Strange where if you're not careful, his origin story is fantastic, but you can get caught in the loop of that origin story. And I think certainly since the film, that there's been a real renewed push to open up new stories for Stephen Strange with Jason Aaron, with Donny Cates, and obviously now we've got Mark Waid coming back to the character as well. So really, really good to see this kind of invigoration of looking and exploring new storylines of Doctor Strange. So I'm hoping that this certainly provides that with these 4-5 members of the Midnight Suns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And potentially more, as we will come on to now.
Well, exactly, yeah. Let's start out our notes with, there's 2 big sections, really, in this book that stood out to me from the artwork by Rod Reyes. A fantastic moment at the end, which I've reached out to our other podcasters, as I mentioned, Rebecca, who is a member of the team for the Iron Fist podcast, and she's also appeared on the Moon Knight podcast many, many times. I reached out to them to try and help me out on that final panel of the epilogue as to who those possible members of the future of the Midnight Suns are. I knew a few of them, don't get me wrong. I knew Loki, and I knew Wanda, and I knew Clay is in there as well. Baron Mordo, I believe, is over on the right-hand side of that panel as you're looking at it.
Absolutely. Doctor Doom as well, which is always a good sign. I love Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange mashups. Mm-hmm. So good. Yeah. So cool. So who knows how that will turn out, but that's really good as well. But yeah, Rebecca also indicated that there was Damon Hellstorm as well. He was a member of the Defenders and the Midnight Suns as well, so he's got a track record here. Mm-hmm. And then there was Magic, who was the blonde in the middle, usually of X-Men fame. Yep. And then Nico Minoru, seen in the Doctor Strange movie.
Kind of. She wasn't named in the Doctor Strange movie, but we did see her in there. Probably more present in Runaways, the TV show. Nick Minoru and her mother, Tina Minoru, are both in that show.
Yes, absolutely.
Very powerful Wiccan, so another powerful magic person in this future possible team up of all of these characters, but really good to see all of those characters in there. The other one that was mentioned by Rebecca, and we're not really sure about this one, possibility that the older lady that's in there is Agatha Harkness, because she's an original witch. She was from the Salem witch trials. She's been going on in the Marvel universe since the Salem witch trials, many hundreds of years old now, but she just couldn't think of another character that it could be.
I didn't recognise the character at all. She'll bring her knitting needles along or something like that. Who knows? But they will be powerful knitting needles that will have mystical energy. In fact, it could be knitting needles imbued with powerful magic.
I would like to see you say that to Agatha Harkness, to be honest. She's a very powerful witch, John.
Of course she is.
Not a chance. Thank you so much for the help on that, Rebecca. The other big panel that stood out to probably anybody who doesn't know Ghost Rider and anybody who does know Ghost Rider in this book is the panel where we have 20 or 30 different Ghost Riders bearing down upon Mephisto and dealing out his punishment.
Yes.
So I did reach out to the Inner Demons podcast and asked them to help me out just to check and see, was this all something created by Rod Reyes, or is this something that exists in the Ghost Rider history? And fair dues, the guys came up with some great Ghost Rider characters that do actually exist in the run. Very impressed with what they said. Let's quickly go through it. So Brian and Chris are the hosts of the Inner Demon podcast. Brian says to us that some of the inspiration for the panels come from the Jason Aaron run with Tanang Hout on The Last Stand of the Spirits of Vengeance. He says this is his take on the panel. Basically, in the last 10 years, the Ghost Rider has become kind of a legacy character, similar to kind of the Green Lantern Corps over on DC, where each region of the world or generation could have a dedicated spirit of vengeance to protect the innocent and, more importantly, punish the guilty. They often exhibit powers or modes of transportation that would make sense to accompany them, but their numbers have been reduced to almost nothing in recent years, leaving only a few Ghost Riders left. Not all of these characters are considered dead. You can see Robbie Reyes, who's right in the center of the picture. He was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. recently.
Yeah, that was one that I recognised for sure.
Exactly, and he is alive and well in the comic books, and he's now an Avenger. So, but Brian says, I can only imagine that they're all there to mete out punishment to Mephisto, and that's the only reason they're all gathered together at the same time. Most of these are historical legacy Ghost Riders created by Jason Aaron during Last Stand of the Spirits of Vengeance about 10 years ago. But here are some of the characters that he could identify. Hope it helps, he says.
Yes. So we have Robbie Reyes, as we indicated. There's obviously Johnny Blaze as well, front and center with his flaming crown on. I love the fact that there is a 1930s sidekick here called Knuckles O'Shaughnessy.
Yes, you'll see him at the bottom of the panel with playing his banjo on his knee, I think.
Yes.
Another famous Ghost Rider, Danny Ketch, a.k.a. Noble Kale, is in there. We have Alejandra Jones. We have Nima, who's a Ghost Rider from Tibet. We've got Devil Rig, who's a truck-driving Ghost Rider. We've got a Russian Ghost Rider in there with his Russian hat on his head.
There's Baron Skullfire, presumably from Germany.
Yes, probably.
We also have the awesome T Rider Rex from Ghost Racers, which is fantastic. Who would have thought a ghost riding T-Rex would be a thing? I like it. They need to bring this into the MCU.
Absolutely. I think the actual T-Rex himself is a Ghost Rider. That's the cool part about it. Because it's going back like millennia, so this could be the dinosaurs' Ghost Rider, the one that punished them as well. And we have Ghost Flyer, who's a pilot from World War One. We have a Native American Ghost Rider. Marionette Boacek is in there. We've got Molech, who's an Arabian Ghost Rider in there. Loads and loads of cool ones in there. Yeah. We've got the Chinese Ghost Rider Bai Kuxing. We've got the Japanese Ghost Rider in there as well. Very cool stuff. But I think my favourite, actually, the T-Rex is probably my favourite of them. But my second favourite, I think, is the Phantom Rider, who's up in the top left-hand corner. Just because he looks so cool. Like, he looks like the Cowboy Times version of Ghost Rider, all in white with his white Stetson on top of his head. Very cool. What do you think? What's your favourite in there, John?
Oh, T-Rider Rex, definitely. I could do that all day.
To reference Captain America, yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well, the Ghost Rider sidekick, Knuckles O'Shaughnessy, as well.
For his Irish connection.
Absolutely.
Well, John, that's kind of all the notes that I have for this comic book, for Damnation number 4. How would you rate this issue?
Well, to definitely keep the hell puns going, sorry bats, I would give this 4.5 hell yes out of 5. I thought it was a really nice roundup to the Damnation series, the 4 comics of the event. We've also got the final Doctor Strange Damnation issue as well to go, but I thought this was really good. Overall, I absolutely loved this issue. I thought Wong being given that time to show how courageous he is was really good, and him and Stephen coming back. I think some massively complex, interesting, fascinating splash pages there with the Ghost Riders, with Doctor Strange being all the Avengers assembling inside him again. And that was just epic. I absolutely thought that was fantastic. Seeing Mephisto get his comeuppance, seeing just the epilogue as well, just adding more intrigue for what is to come from the Midnight Suns. I think, yes, Midnight Suns and Daughters were a distraction, but they were an important distraction. I liked that, Wong's real plan came to fruition because of them, because they played their part in giving Johnny Blaze that space to become the Lord of Hell so that he could control hell and make the difference in that final battle against Mephisto. Again, a little bit of bats in there, what's not to love. I loved some of the humor, and I think just having Stephen Strange sitting down, laughing with Wong, sitting down with Bats, Bats again just telling him to knuckle down, really, really good. The epilogue, fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. It just gave a great ending to this series.
Right, yeah. I think for me overall, it's not the series I wanted when I read issue number 1 of Damnation, but issue number 4 capped off what we got really, really well. The 2 issues in between, issue 3 and 4, were a little bit slow and a little bit like hardly anything was happening. It felt like the tie-in issues, as we've mentioned many times, have been really, really enjoyable books in their own right and just tied into Damnation as kind of a jumping off point. But this kind of capper on the series of the 4 issues is a really good capper. I think I'd agree with you on a 4 out of 5 for it. But I think when we set out to do this whole event for Doctor Strange Damnation, we thought we were getting something very different to begin with. And what we got in the end to cap it off has been really good for me. This last issue has been really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. You know, there's characters in there that, you know, have got their own series, that they've not been necessarily given the space within this storyline to be anything particularly significant, and that is a shame. And I would say probably if it had, you know, maybe 6 to 8 issues, that's something that would have done maybe more. It would have been a different structure, absolutely.
Perhaps, yeah.
And I know what you mean. I think sometimes with crossovers, you do get that problem of the repetition of introducing what's happened before. And I mean, even with this issue, you know, when I opened the first page and they talked about Stephen Strange has attempted to resurrect the fallen city of Las Vegas, you know, and it didn't go quite as planned, I was thinking, okay, this is the final issue. How much more time or panel space is going to be taken up with that recap, in a sense, of which it was a full page, I think. But
they do have to recap it because people may not have been able to pick up a physical copy of the book down the local comic book store. Because
I agree, they have to recap it. But I think that's what the synopsis by Donny Cates and Nick Spencer did so well. It's there. It doesn't necessarily to be done in the artwork, in the meat of the comic. And I was just like, oh no, we're going to get like 3 or 4 pages where it's going over it. Now, it didn't go on for that long, but I think that can be a general issue with events in comic series in general. So it doesn't take away at all from the pleasure I had getting into this story.
Absolutely.
And that is why I'd give it 4.5 hell yes out of 5.
And I'm sure we'll get into that much more when we're talking about our final issue of the Damnation series, Doctor Strange number 389, which will be coming up next in your podcast feed on Defenders TV Podcast. Let's get into some Damnation feedback, John.
Yeah, on with the feedback.
Our first bit of feedback comes in from Ray over at the Moon Knight podcast, Into the Night.
Hi guys, it's Ray from Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Just wanted to drop in some thoughts about Damnation 4. I thought it was a really good final issue. And was quite impressed with it. I think a lot of it had to do with Rod Reyes' art, which is just gorgeous to look at. So we hadn't seen his art since issue 1, so it was a timely return for the final issue of the core books. Also, I loved obviously Wong's plan all along, and I liked how that tied in with Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider 1. So very clever there. And finally, also, Wong's relationship with Doctor Strange was very cool. So I loved how they, you know, in a sense, mended their friendship ever since Wong left. A little bit of humor in there as well. So I loved Elsa Bloodstone's retort at Thor's, shout for victory. And finally, a post-credit scene of its own with an epilogue, and very exciting stuff with a lot of the photos there Doctor Strange presents in front of the Midnight Suns. So overall, a really fun issue. I'm looking forward to hearing your review. Fantastic. I'd give this one probably one of the best of the core books, so maybe 4 Crescent Dart ratings. But anyway, catch you later.
Perfectly aligned to our rating there, right? Thank you so much for that feedback. That moment with Elsa Bloodstone just calling the Avengers idiots for trying to take credit.
It's really, really good. It's just typical Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But yeah, some beautiful artwork in there as well. Really, really enjoyed this book.
Yeah, and couldn't agree more in relation to Wong's relationship with Doctor Strange and his plan. I thought this really nicely rested on Wong here in this issue, as much as it was also about Doctor Strange. And I thought that was a really nice move, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Our other piece of feedback comes in from Connor from the Sons of the Dragon podcast. As he says himself, the best and only Iron Fist podcast around. These two facts are completely unrelated, though. This is a really good podcast. I have been really enjoying the coverage of these books, and a number of the Iron Fist books have been really good. He says, I guess the end is here. I'm sad to see it end, but I'll also point out it's quite late here as I write this, so I might not make any sense, but I'll try. About Damnation number 4, I really liked it, but as Iron Fist fan, it sucked. He got shot with arrows, was down for the count, then he healed himself with chi off panel and stood up, and that's about it for the core books. He just stands there all the time, pretty much no dialogue, despite having 3 actual tie-ins to this book, and to add insult to injury, in the post-credits scene setting up the Midnight Suns, Iron Fist isn't even there. Are you kidding me? Why even have him in this crossover at all? That was the one thing I was really hoping to get out of this as Iron Fist fan. I'd love to see him in a Mystic team, but nope, not this time. Just feel like it was a bit pointless having him in the event. But hey, his tie-ins kicked major arse, even if they were never referenced. Just a bit mad thinking about it. He may as well just have had a cameo role in his main book.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that kind of point of view, really. I mean, I'm a big Iron Fist fan as well. Yeah. I'd love to have seen him, really sort of maybe slightly escaping the gravity of Kunlun and endless fighting, which, sometimes I feel prevents Iron Fist from really moving on a bit, certainly at the moment. And maybe that's because we cover the Defenders as well. I know he has definitely had different storylines, but here it would have really been great, I think, as you say, Connor, that we see him becoming an integral member of a Mystic team, and really seeing how that can explore Iron Fist as this character. It would have been really, really good, and completely agree. I loved his tie-in comics as well, and I think you're right. It's a shame they aren't referenced through the main event, and that he's not given some more here. I mean, I think you could say the same with Moon Knight here as well. I mean, Elsa Bloodstone, not too sure. Even Blade. I think more discovery of these characters within this event probably would only have come if it was longer, in terms of, as I say, maybe an 8-issue event or something. I don't know. Yeah,
it feels like a weird one. It feels like the proposal originally may have been for a big, huge series that involved all of these characters and tied all of the books into it. Like, Moon Knight really hasn't had any connection to these books. Brother Voodoo, I don't think, got more than one line from the original issue. Man-Thing only got a moment in this issue, really, where he where you find out that Wong isn't afraid. That's his big moment in the books. But do you really need Man-Thing there for that? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like there was a proposal on the table for each of the characters in this book to have their own spin-off, their own tie-in to it. And Iron Fist's tie-in seemed to be using the premise of having damnation and being able to go to hell to save some of his loved ones, to bring his sister back into the books, to bring Fat Cobra's mother back into the books. What I will say, the big positive I had at the end of it was, they're going back to hell to save Johnny Blaze. Who says they can't rescue Orson Randall while they're down there?
Definitely.
I know he's been pushed into hell because he lost, and he's there as a lost soul and can't escape under the old deal of the devil, but that doesn't mean he's not coming back.
That's true. He definitely could come back. Yeah. And maybe, who knows, that although there are only just the 4 members there, that the other members won't get called upon.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know. Exactly. But yeah, it's a shame that they all weren't around the table there in the Sanctum Sanctorum at the end, because it does suggest that maybe moving forward, the Midnight Suns are a 5-piece here.
Or many more. There's at least another 10 or so reference there that Doctor Strange could be going after to join the group. And Connor goes on to say, anyway, on the other hand, as a Johnny Blaze fan, this was awesome. His tie-in is definitely essential to this event, and he's the real MVP outside of Wong, and I'm very glad that he had such a huge role in the finale for this. I was half expecting them to sweep that under the rug too. I love that he's pretty much the reason Mephisto is defeated. Well, aside from Wong. Speaking of Wong, I felt like they should have called this Wong Damnation half the time. Not that this is a complaint. just that he had a much larger role than I initially would have thought. That's really true. Yeah, he really did. But I suppose being a supporting character of Doctor Strange for so many years, the reason he's there is to make sure that Doctor Strange is saved and that he finds out he has friends and finds out that all of the people that are around him support him. So yes, without Wong, this absolutely wouldn't have happened, and there wouldn't have been a saving grace there, I suppose. But I do agree with you. There's some moments where he's such a real central character. It's really good to see him as a really central character. It doesn't happen very often.
No, and I agree. I think, Wong really comes shooting from the pack here, and really is one of the critical figures along with Johnny Blaze. And I agree. I absolutely loved the look at Johnny Blaze. I don't know much about the character. I know about Ghost Rider, but for me, this opened up a whole new area of Marvel Comics, which was really, really cool. So yeah, I'd certainly be reading some more Johnny Blaze as well.
Mm-hmm. Connor continues with, here's hoping we do a panel with all of us podcasts very soon to discuss the event in total. And you guys should totally do a Doctor Strange podcast.
Watch this space.
Yes, watch this space. We may have some possibilities of doing a comic book podcast coming up in the future, we'll say.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we said to begin with, this is the first time we had done comics for such a long time. I think over on our DC podcast with Gotham TV podcast, we had done a whole series of comics, Batman comics, leading up to the TV series Gotham. But we hadn't really done much on Defenders TV podcast in relation to comics. So this was real first big look at doing the Marvel comics. And of course, for me, doing Doctor Strange is absolutely fantastic. He is such a great character, such a complete and utter nightmare in his own way, as well as Nightmare being one of his greatest nemesis.
There you go. Maybe you'll teach me some more about Doctor Strange in the future, and I can bring you into the world of Nick Fury, perhaps, in the future. Kanaka's had to say, disappointed a bit in the Damnation event. Overall, the main event, the first and last issues were great, but the middle two were a bit weak. The tie-ins were where this event absolutely shines. It's just a shame that the Iron Fist and Scarlet Spider tie-ins didn't have any impact overall in the main event, despite Mephisto wanting those two out of the picture. I feel this event would have benefited immensely from a couple of more issues in the main series, and I still can't believe no Iron Fist in the Midnight Suns tease. I'll end with this. Why was he there? But as a PS, I will just say, I loved all the cameos of the Ghost Rider showing up in hell at the end. Even Carter Slade, the original Ghost Rider, who wasn't actually a spirit of vengeance, unless that was changed, but I guess that's a question for Inner Demons. Thanks so much for that feedback, Connor. Really good to hear your thoughts on this issue of Damnation. That is definitely a question for Inner Demons. I have no idea whether that's been changed, because I know the origins of some of the characters from Ghost Rider have changed over the years. Most likely, if that's one of the original Ghost Riders, it may have changed a couple of times over the history of it. But thanks so much for your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Connor, for your thoughts. Really good to hear your views, and as well from Ray as well. Really good to hear your thoughts on the Damnation event as well, definitely. Yeah. And of course, hopefully we will be arranging a big jamboree where all members of the podcast, or as many as can make it, will discuss in retrospect the Damnation event.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of like a round table, but like a ring of fire. We'll sit round and talk about it.
Like King Arthur and the Round Table, indeed.
I was thinking a ring of fire of hell more than that, you know.
Well, indeed, Doctor Strange is in the Sorcerers Supreme, has certainly been dealing with Merlin. So, yes. Interesting.
Also, a big thanks to Brian and Chris from over on the Inner Demons podcast for their help out on all the Ghost Riders, and to Rebecca for her help out on the possible future Midnight Sons and Daughters.
Yeah, big time.
I do have the mid-80s Australian theme tune for that soap opera Sons and Daughters going on over and over in my head. Thought I'd put that in your head, dear listeners.
Oh yeah, Sons and Daughters.
Lives and laughter.
Goodness. Yes. Was that Australian or New Zealand?
Australian, I believe. I'm sure some of our other fellow podcast hosts will be able to correct us on that one. But if you want to send in any feedback to us or any of your thoughts about any of our podcasts, please email us to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Or if you want to join us over on our Facebook group, you can join us at facebook.com/groups/DefendersTVPodcast. We will be back for our next episode with Doctor Strange number 389. very, very soon because it came out the same day.
Yes, so stay subscribed to Defenders TV podcast, and we will be discussing Doctor Strange issue 389. And of course, just for all the listeners, we have just finished our Jessica Jones season 2 on Netflix as well. So if you want to hear about Jessica Jones, aka Alias Investigates, please head on over to Defenders TV podcast as well to check out Jessica Jones.
Absolutely, and you can follow along with those episodes. Whatever pace you're watching the Netflix shows, we do individual episodes about those shows. We have 13 episodes for Jessica Jones. Coming up very soon, our next Netflix series is going to be Luke Cage. Season 2 is out on the 22nd of June. But there's one other thing that's happening in between the two. And you probably spent the time that we've spent recording our podcast actually watching the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Avengers Infinity War is in the cinema as we speak right this very moment.
I know. What are we doing?
I don't know.
Well, the love of comics, the love of film will mean that we get to do it both because, yes, we will be covering Avengers Infinity War, which is out this week, which is the week of the 26th of April. And we will see Thanos in all his thuggish glory take on the assembled superheroes of Earth and beyond as well. So yeah, really, really good stuff.
I'm looking forward to that. Really
me too.
And maybe it was for the love of damnation that we were doing this. Maybe that was it. John, I think it's time to wrap up the show. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow Defenders. We will be back very soon with our coverage of the next issue of Damnation, the next and final issue of Damnation.
Yes, thank you as always for listening. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. And of course, we will speak with you again next time.
That is the last hell pun, John, okay?
Damn.